Axe and Axe.
Yes.
I
So
saw that.
last week when when I mentioned axe in hand and we had the little side discussion about the spelling of axe, I don't remember if you said it or if I did. Either way, it was mentioned
It was
that
one of us.
it was mentioned that it might be a regional thing, like the British English, American English spellings and differences. And come to find out, it is. It's
Nice.
more predominantly spelled axe. I think, more predominantly ax, or more common axe in British English than American English, and more common ax in American English. But there's no difference between the two, other than that.
Gotcha. I like gray, the spelling of gray. I thought that's a good one.
Grey.
Yeah. I don't know why, but I gravitated towards that, and later found out that the English use grey because it's got an e, and the mnemonic devices it has an e in it, so it's the English spelling. Whereas gray with an a is the American spelling. It's got an a in it. I was like, oh, that's a clever mnemonic device.
90% of the time, I spell it grey. Every once in a while, I'll spell it the other way just for shits and giggles, really,
Yeah.
for no other reason.
I choose the e for I don't know why. I don't know where that came from, but it was after that I found out the difference. But I don't spell shop with an extra p or an e.
Yeah, I don't either. I've never spelt it that way. I've dabbled with the whole color, adding the U, and other similar words, adding the U.
There are bullies in my house that pick on me for saying how I pronounce the city in Southern California that's abbreviated by LA.
Los Angeles or Los Angeles.
I say Los Angeles because I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I hear that variation that often, but it is what it is.
I think other English speaking, like I've heard Australians say it that way. I've heard New Zealanders say it that way. I've heard the British say it that way.
You can't take what the Australians say for anything. They just make up words.
That's fine. I mean, I mean the.
No, I'm making fun. I love listening to a lot of the ways the Australians decide to describe things.
Oh yeah, no, it's fun. I was just gonna say it's. I mean, anything an Australian says you have to take with a grain of salt because I mean they're Australian. They are. You never know when they're going to try to trick you. I met a guy. Went on a paddling trip with this guy. He's from Australia, and he said, "Yeah, we're like little devils, always trying to trick the goody goodies." That's how he described Australians.
I like that description. I think it fits.
Yeah, I think so too. I think by and large it does fit. I mean, you've got you've got the same all sorts of walks of life, but as a stereotype, I don't think that's a bad one. I don't think that's a negative one, and I don't think it's a wrong one. Sometimes you need a little devil in your life to give you a little bit of fun, to lead you to fun. I felt like there was a thing I was going to add to our notes, and I hadn't added it, but I'm going to bring it up here right now, and I'll add it to the notes later. But did you come across in the news or social media or anywhere that Representative from the state of Georgia, Representative Green, had an interesting conversation with AI, specifically XAI's Grok?
I don't think this does not sound familiar, so I don't recall seeing any headlines or anything about it either.
So I saw it on social media, and I'm like, okay, that's fun, but social media, it could be a lie. So I found an article on TechCrunch, and I'll put it in the show notes. But the title of it is Marjorie Taylor Greene picked a fight with Grok, and it just goes through a little bit of the conversation that Greene had with AI. And I'll read some excerpts of it. And it looked like Greene shared, I don't know what it is. I don't know how Twitter works. But there's an @ mention for Grok. And she said, at Grok, the judgment seat belongs to God, not you, a non-human AI platform. Grok is left-leaning and continues to spread fake news and propaganda. When people give up their own discernment, stop seeking the truth, and depend on AI to analyze information, they will be lost. And that was, she shared the screenshot of Grok saying that Marjorie Taylor Greene identifies as a Christian, expressing faith in Jesus and traditional beliefs like in her 2021 Christmas message. However, her Christian nationalism and support for conspiracy theories like QAnon sparked debate. Critics, including religious leaders, argue her actions contradict Christian values of love and unity. Citing her defense of January 6th and divisive rhetoric, supporters may see her stances as faith-driven. Whether she's quote-unquote really a Christian is subjective, depending on personal and theological views. Her faith appears to be genuine to her, but public actions create controversy. And she posted after that, I'm a Christian, an imperfect sinner saved by the grace and faith in Jesus, with a cross emoji. I'm a nationalist, a proud American who loves my country and wants to make our home nation is the best place for all American citizens and future generations to come. I'm not bad at reading. I'm just reading what was poorly written. So I like that she accused Grok of being left-leaning. It just shows how artificial her intelligence is. No, that's not fair. It's lacking. It's just lacking of intelligence. Because it's yeah.
Well,
you put something into a prompt and it puts back what is out there, whether it's true or not true.
The difficulty that I have with the talking points out of the GOP in general, I think it's probably the best way to encapsulate what I have in mind, is that anything that is not in their point of view or the way they want their point of view to be stated is left-leaning. So you could say that, everything available to the NRA should be made, or change that. Everything the NRA is lobbying for should be made legal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But then add something like background checks, mandatory background checks for all firearms purchases, whether it's a rifle or a handgun, and immediately it would be left-leaning, even though the net effect would be much more right-leaning, because it doesn't match the talking point they want.
Right.
And that's been one of my big frustrations with even the supporters and the way they want to categorize things, is it's just, you disagree on some piece of what's here, and so it's left-leaning. And that's asinine.
Right, if you don't agree with me 100%, then you're wrong.
Yeah.
And whereas, I sit here and I read that and I'm like, you know what? The phrase "a blind squirrel finds a nut" from time to time, or a stop clock is correct twice a day. She's not wrong when she says when people give up their own discernment, stop seeking the truth, and depend on AI to analyze information, they will be lost. I agree with some of what she said there. I think that it is fine to allow AI to analyze data and facts. That's the whole point of AI. It's so much faster and better at it than we are. But you have to know that your facts are correct. And you have to know that you have to be able to think critically about what you're getting and where that information is coming from. So, yeah. So you had a blind squirrel moment.
I think the same general issue that people miss the mark with older, just standard news, like even going back to newspapers, or however far back you want to go to radio broadcasts, or take your pick. The general populace has a bit of a blinder at questioning the validity of what they hear if it's not necessarily what they want to hear, or maybe the opposite way, but not being able to take what is presented and do the bare bones, just basic concept of a fact check, as opposed to well, it said it, it must be right. And I know that's what you were getting at with the critically thinking piece, or being able to at least think about what you're receiving. But it's even less involved than that. That is the big blind spot. I would be happy at this point with people just taking something and saying, and it could be a little bit wrong. I need to at least check a statement or two and have an idea of how wrong it is.
I agree, and I'll take it even a bit further and say it may be wrong, and I'm prepared to find out that it is wrong. Not even, let's say you don't want to check it. Maybe when the stakes are low, I guess you don't need to check it. But yeah, I often think about The Empire Strikes Back and is the data right? Because in my head, for some reason, and I don't think this is a Mandela effect, but in my head, for the longest time, I thought that The Empire Strikes Back was in the cinema in 1979. And I think I know where that came from, but turns out it was 1980. Or all accounts currently on the internet really point to 1980. And I don't know why I thought, or I think I know why I thought it was 1979, but part of it being having to do with I was a real Star Wars nerd when I was about 10, 11 years old. A real Star Wars nerd. To the extent that I was reading an account of how the movie was made. So somebody was, I guess, on set and writing, I don't know, I hesitate to call it a biography, but I don't know what else to call it. But writing an account of all the goings-ons of the making of the movie. And I remember this story of Mark Hamill being with his wife in Norway to record the Hoth scenes. And I think there was some she was pregnant, and there was something, they had a giant teddy bear for the baby to come, or their soon to be born child. And I remember at some point I think he had to jump out of a train and landed on this giant teddy bear. And anyway, but I think that's why I have in my head that it was released in 1979, because I think they were actually recording things in 1979. Production was in 1979, not the release.
Production does normally come before release. That much is certain.
Except for the trailer. The trailer can come before production finishes. No, but you have to have some amount of production before you have a trailer.
Correct.
Trailers come during post-production. Anyway, but it depends. They could have been a movie that you can still be in production at the beginning of the year could be released at the end of the year. So I don't know.
Fair.
I just had in my head there's a whole 12 months to do some stuff. Anyway,
I think at this point it would be easier to try to go from production to release in a year than it would have been then, just with the nature of having to cut film.
Oh yeah, and then also they were going to some. Where all did they record? So I guess Norway was the only on location. Well, no, that's not really on location, because they went to Norway for the Hoth scenes. I'm trying to think. I guess the rest of it might have been on sound stages. I know Dagobah was a sound stage, and the asteroid field, pretty confident that was a sound stage. They weren't on location for that. And then Cloud City. I was just thinking, I was like, oh, Hoth is the only really outdoor places that you see in that movie. And that just occurred to me.
I never thought through it, but I can't think of another one off the top of my head. Everything
else would have been. I think everything else would have been on stage, a sound stage.
Which does make sense, because it was technically a relatively low budget production.
Yeah.
Star Wars would have been arguably the epitome of low budget production.
Yeah, but they made it to Tunisia,
right?
But then I think the rest of it was sound stages.
Yeah, I think so.
maybe the fourth moon of Yavin, like some shots out there, but that was hardly anything. You didn't have to send a bunch of actors out there.
That would have been added with the special edition too, though, right?
No, I think there's some amount of establishing shots outside that were in the theatrical release, like minimal.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and watch it now, but I don't remember.
But it could have been a miniature.
Yeah.
So
homework is to go rewatch the original trilogy and see if you can pick out locations that could be real locations instead of sound stages.
I mean, I think that we just covered the first two movies, and then the third movie they go back to Return of the Jedi. They go back to Tunisia, and then they are in the Pacific Northwest, middle California. They're in the redwoods. That's it.
Yeah, I couldn't think of anything else either.
I remember in this video, like I said, I was a nerd. I remember in this video it was like a making of video from the 70s. So it would have come out. It was between Star Wars. Star Wars had become, a cultural phenomenon, but before The Empire Strikes Back had been released. And I just remember Mark Hamill sitting there, and he's like, "Yeah, we could record it." I mean, George Lucas, I can't remember exactly how he said, but basically he's like, he's got a blank check. He could go, shoot a scene in Redondo Beach if he wanted to. And that's when I learned about the existence of Redondo Beach.
Yeah, I guess by the time I was thinking Empire was more low budget than it probably was, just by way of scales of inflation and everything else. It probably was pretty well funded.
Yeah, but it wasn't.
It certainly wasn't on the same scale as what we think of as being well funded today. But like that,
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to go back and think of in my head. Is for its day, it actually would have been pretty well funded.
They spent the money on the writing, and that was an excellent idea.
Yeah,
that was well. Yeah, that was a good use of that budget. So I haven't watched those movies in quite a long time.
I haven't sat and watched them through in quite a while, but they are some of the ones that I will randomly just put on at any given time for background noise.
Yeah. I can remember as a young teenager thinking, I was like, wow, I love how political Star Wars is. All the discussion of the dissolution of the Senate and the rise of the Empire. I was like, so political. And then other members of my family were just like bored to tears. That was when it was time to get up and go prepare some popcorn. So I was going to ask you about Power to Your Shed. Did you settle on anything, or is it still a work in progress?
Yeah, I think I settled on. Well, so I have. We'll see. That's the easiest way to answer it. No, that would just leave too many questions. So I ordered 2 different solar generators, 2 different sizes. And the only reason I ordered 2 is because there was a promotion that was ending, and I figured it's easier to return one than to not get the extra savings. So I ordered the Jackeries, the 1000 Explorer, or Explorer 1000. Yeah, that's what it is. The 1000 V2. And the 2000 Plus. And I think the 1000 will actually handle what I need it to handle. But I'm a little bit skeptical because of the number of chargers that I have for the batteries for lawn equipment and everything, that I might end up actually needing a little more runtime to actually charge everything in one cycle, which is kind of my benchmark for what will work. And so we'll see if that does it. If not, I'm probably going to run like PVC pipe as a conduit and just run power off the house for a bit, instead of going with anything larger than those. because I don't really want to invest in anything bigger. Not for what I have in mind here.
Yeah.
The main reason I don't want to just do the proper thing and hardwire it in, actually to the electrical panel, is because then I would have to do yet another round of permits and have to bring in a licensed electrician and everything else. And all I really need is the equivalency of a plug into the shed for battery charging purposes. But I have 3 chargers to run potentially simultaneously, depending on what combination of things I need to do, which is why I have a little bit of concern about whether the 1000 will handle it or if it has to be a little bit larger. So we'll see. I mean, the shed's not even complete yet, so I've got some time for that to happen. It's got 2 walls up out of the 4.
Okay. So my first question was going to be: are the batteries that you're charging, do they stay in the device, or are they easily removed for charging?
Yeah, they come out. Yeah, they're removed, and so it's the predominant batteries that I'm concerned about are the ones for lawn equipment, not so much for power tools. Right. So I have 2 different sets there. Power tools, I have no problems with those batteries being carried back and forth, between the shed and charging in the house if need be. It would be nice to have a charger out there that was capable of replenishing something while I was in the process of working on things, but that's minimal. But the lawnmower, weed eater, hedge trimmer, all the larger yard maintenance tools are all Greenworks Pro tools. And so they're relatively large batteries. And the riding mower uses 6 of those. And that's where it's more, I don't want to carry those back and forth every time I need to, because I have to charge it basically per cutting session.
Yeah. That's what I was kind of getting at, and that's the main question. It's like, how easy is it to transport batteries back and forth? But yeah, I can understand that is not this is the right solution.
Yeah, it's doable, sure. It's just I can see after 1 or 2 seasons of having to deal with it, I'm going to be tired of it. And what I don't want to do is get into the point where I have to pull like lawnmower into the garage, charge everything, and then drive it into the shed, because that just negates the purpose of getting it out of the garage in the first place.
Right. Because then at some point you're like, I don't want to go and move it to the shed. I'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow turns into, I'll do it when I cut it, and defeats the purpose. You're absolutely right. I thought I was going to be more interested in this, but no.
Yeah, I think my biggest concern with the 1000 is because I have the Greenworks Pro line, so they're 80-volt batteries, and then the quick chargers charge 2 batteries at a time. Excuse me. And so my big concern is that I might be able to get 2 sets of batteries charged on one charge, but it might not have the overall wattage capacity to run long enough to charge the 3rd set. We'll see. There's so much.
Electricity is incredibly complex.
It is and it isn't. That's kind of what I was going to go into, because like all of the data on the batteries is in volts, and the chargers are voltage and amps, and you can kind of convert that over. Well, technically there are mathematical equations that allow you to convert that, but what it doesn't take into account is the average level of charge of the batteries to actually be replenished, as opposed to because not all 6 batteries are used equally out of the mower either. And so you have the variableness of, on an average cutting cycle, how much of each battery set am I charging? Because one battery, if I remember correctly, one battery bank drives the left wheel and controls, one battery bank drives the right wheel and controls, and one battery bank drives the actual blade assembly and its controls. And I may not have that broken down quite right, but in theory, that's what it is. And so it can technically operate with 1 battery per bank. You just have half your runtime. And of course, it's designed to run with 2 batteries per bank to help reduce wear on the batteries, I assume. But like on average, I know I'm not depleting all 6 batteries, even when it reaches, zero, or when it gets the limp home mode and quits providing power to the blades, and you have to charge before you get back to full power and everything else. Like, I know that all 6 batteries are not depleted, but I don't really know how long it takes. What I know are the theoretical maximums for each battery, and so there's some question in my mind about whether I actually have it right, and the one model 1000 unit will be able to handle it, or if it would require the 2000 with like the trickle charging from the solar panel to kind of reach that max capacity. So that's where most of the questions come into play. So we'll see.
Like I said, electricity is complex. Well, there's
just a lot of variability.
There's a lot of variables. Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. A lot of variables. But also, I mean, I think if you go in deeper, when we're in, like middle school, they use the flow of water as an analogy to explain electricity, and in that setting, that's correct. But it's when you learn more about electricity, you're like, oh, that's not actually how that works, but it does help us to understand something that it's difficult for us to see or comprehend, or it's just really, like understanding the flow of water, bigger pipe, higher volume, higher pressure, like all of that is very relatable. We experience that on a regular basis. People complain about water pressure in places they stay. So that's a thing that's very, like I said, very relatable. Whereas, the flow of electrons is not.
And then fluctuations in how those are affected by temperature and resistance and
gauge of wire. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the I'm trying to remember how the joke starts. I can't remember how the joke starts, but I remember somewhere in the punchline is the bad electricity has been grounded until they conduct themselves better.
Oh, I've heard this in relation to
joke.
I've heard it in relation to like a kid chewing on a wire or something.
Yes. And he's been grounded until he conducts himself better. Yeah,
it's a good joke.
Yeah, I like good math jokes too.
I thought you were going to say something else. That's the reason I was waiting.
Oh no! I was about to ask you if there's. You want to talk about your Apple TV app?
I don't have a lot to say at this point, but I thought it was prudent to just call out that the non-developer or self-proclaimed non-developer, or at least not a professional developer, however you want to phrase it. Like now I suddenly have 2 apps that are, well, I have one app in the store and one app that has now entered the testing phase that should be through the review process and on the store within the next couple of weeks.
Nice.
Kind of not what I anticipated doing.
No? Well, I think that some folks have paid you for your app, and that means you're now a professional developer.
Yeah, I guess so. I still don't like it.
No?
That's not necessarily fair to say. I don't mind it a lot, but I still don't like being a developer. It's just not like the actual development work itself is still not what I want to do. But I like the end result and having the accompanying items for my overall business model and vision. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. It's
like I have quite a few things that I have in the pipeline that that I'm hoping to get to. There's actually a cohesive narrative among all these different things that should become more and more aware over the course of this year. It'll be interesting to see it all unfold.
Okay.
And I don't mind answering certain questions. I just don't have certain details yet.
I was gonna ask you, what about the development process is not to your liking?
I don't like sitting and dealing with code.
Okay.
um, I don't hate it, but I don't like it. It's more of I don't want to do it. And if I could outsource it, like if we were generating enough revenue to be just the overall like project or product management and owner role and let somebody else do the development, I would do so. It's just not at a point where that's justifiable at all. Probably won't be on the near horizon either. But like that, I can absolutely see why people would outsource development as a small shop. Well, as a large shop too, like it makes sense, but especially as a small shop, like having somebody that wants to do it and really enjoys it, that's a different type of individual.
Yes, I was going to say there's certainly people out there who enjoy that kind of work, and whereas I totally understand the position of I have ideas, and the development process is in the way of me executing on my ideas, and that sounds like kind of where you are.
Well, sort of. The development process is a necessary pain point in executing my ideas, but it's one that I'm forcing myself through as opposed to having it be a blocker. That's probably a better way to think of it.
Mm-hmm. Because right now, at this point, outsourcing it is not going to give you the ROI that defeats, and it would defeat the purpose, maybe.
Yeah, it would cost me way too much money to outsource it at the moment for it to justify it.
Yep.
I got to sell a lot more before that happens.
Right.
But what'll be interesting, so I will share one little tidbit. So one of the things that will be coming, I had originally announced last year and started and had it available as like buy the first part of it now, get the rest of it, as it's produced and everything else. And I pulled back on that because I didn't like what I had produced, but it's focused on or rooted in both developmental psychology and sports psychology for those people who are coming into an art like jiu-jitsu and struggling with how do I learn it and why is it so different, and all the things that you will hear somebody talk about if you are around it enough. Plenty of factual information rooted in actual experiences and science that I just didn't like the way I did the first 3 or 4 modules. Like I had those done, had it ready to go, and I just wasn't happy enough with it. And then before I could re-record them, get into the surgery and everything else, it's like, okay, well, let's just put this project on hold. I'll pick it back up when I start producing content again. So like I have it all scripted and ready to go. Now I just have to actually go back and reshoot and recreate, and then create the rest of them. So like it'll be nice from my perspective because that's more in line with my primary business model. And then the app is a very nice companion to that if somebody wants to do it. And if not, the course will include some free alternatives as well. So it's like I'm definitely not pushing you to say the app is the way you have to do it. It's just what I find to be the best blend of features and all for these specifics. And so they'll be very complementary. And then you can see where like this other app kind of fits into that portfolio of complementary targets and ideas. And so there's another course that's also scripted and ready to be produced that fits into that, but is more widespread. It's not targeted at just a specific art. And so that's a whole portfolio of things that are neatly tied into one umbrella that should be available by the end of the year.
So here's actually a good question I thought about, and with how things have recently changed with the App Store and linking out for payment methods and so forth, has that affected your app, how you get paid for your app?
No. I can see where it could, But under current distribution models and everything, no, it doesn't really affect me directly.
So you're not interested in having an offering outside of the App Store?
I'm interested if it's changed in a way that it makes sense. Right now, it's just not there for me. And part of that is because I'm also in the small business program where I'm only subject to, 15%, I think.
Oh, okay.
Until I gross $1 million, or I think it's gross $1 million. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And so,
which is a great problem to have.
Yeah. I mean, it's not worth it for me to investigate the alternatives at the moment. And I think by the time we get there, there will be other alternatives that make sense anyway.
I hear you.
Mostly because I just don't want to try to build out the infrastructure to support it on the outside.
Right. I mean, it's convenient. It's already there. It's convenient. It's at some point I expect it to be like, oh, this is now a viable revenue stream, but I can see how, you're still developing the app, if I'm not mistaken, or you're developing a companion app for the Apple TV.
Yeah, that app, it's a companion in the grand scheme of what it kind of fits with these other items. Like it's targeted within that same general market, I guess. But it is focused differently because it's more targeted at gym owners than it is end users like the first app.
Oh, yes.
And that one has actually seen significant feedback from a local gym owner who's heavily involved with, this would make my life so much easier and I would be so happy to pay for it. And, there's been a lot of conversation around it. We'll see if that translates into other gym owners as well, or if he's a little bit more of an exception. But at the same time, I have no problems adding this to my repertoire as something else.
I was trying to think if I had anything else to talk about.
I don't really have anything else on it, I don't think. I would expect in the next episode or two, I'll have it submitted for review, and then I'd be happy to speak more about all the details. But there's still enough that might change between now and then that I don't necessarily want to go too in depth with like features and everything.
Yeah. I figured that's where you were in the development, and it's like you don't want to talk about something and then feel like it's committed and have to either decide you want to change it for a reason or have to change it for a reason. So I get that.
Yep. I did wrap Yellowstone, and that's I think that's a good segue.
How did you like the end?
I think it's the only way that it made sense for it to play out. I didn't hate it at all. I didn't love the end, but I liked it enough to say that I agree with the overall arc of the show and getting to that point. I think it did a really good job of getting there. I think the reason I didn't like it is just because it felt like they compressed so much in the last few episodes for obvious reasons from a production standpoint, that it didn't feel like it had the same.
It's not the
depth.
ending we deserved.
Yeah, but I didn't hate it. I just wanted a little bit more. And I don't even know if you would ask, maybe it's adding 30 minutes over the course of a couple of episodes. Maybe it's one additional episode. I don't think it's a lot that it needed. It just needed something to not have it feel like it was all right, we're on a timeline and we have to get it wrapped now kind of thing.
I think, yeah, well, I was going to say, I think for me, it was that Kevin Costner didn't come back. I think that was like a big thing for me, and that it's like, this is not what was originally supposed to happen, or this was not the original plan. And
it had to be modified to fit. Yeah.
Right.
But I do think they would have gotten to the same ending, though.
I do too. I was going to say, I think the things that I really like about how it ended were going to be the part of the ending regardless.
Yeah, I agree. I think in retrospect, having it complete, I think part of what made the last little bit feel off is you had more of a story around Tate up to that point, and then it was like he was just a background character.
Yeah.
And I don't know why his particular arc is the one that I picked out on, because you could make the same argument for Jimmy kind of being shoved into the background, but it felt like they were doing that when they shipped him off to the 4-6s anyway.
Yeah, well, Jimmy wasn't a Dutton, and
right,
and Tate was. He's the next generation, and I think I feel like that's what it is that makes it feel like his character was downplayed a bit too much in those last few episodes.
I will say though, I liked Beth better by the end than I did during that stretch. I still don't like her character, but I think they recognized they pushed the envelope of what an audience could take with her,
right,
and then backed it off a little bit. And I thought they did a really good job of making her still be a likable character, or a more of a human being again. But then I also think back to, there was a conversation where Kevin Costner's character John specifically mentioned that he needed Beth because she could be evil.
Yes.
So part of me does wonder if they didn't push it that hard because of that. Like they already told you to expect it, and they wanted to illustrate it. I could have a lot of fun sitting down and talking about the methods of storytelling and how much of it played into decision making with the creators in that regard.
Yeah, I think it took me the whole run to really figure out, and it was like watching. I think it was not until I was watching 1923 that I realized that it's real easy to get the show. It's really easy to figure out who the bad guys are and who the good guys are, and that is those who exploit the land are the baddies, and those who protect the land and have respect for the land are the goodies. And so I think that was really well demonstrated in the end of the show and what became of the land and what became, I thought that was it was a great plan. It's like you can look and say there are certain relics of Americana that are no longer viable. What can we do to keep this place safe? And I really feel like that's, they took their hard to swallow pills and then they found the best solution they possibly could.
I did like that it came about from Casey's thought processes.
Yeah.
Because I think they did a good job of making him overall be a character that was more worldly and more well-rounded than even he would let on about. And I think they intentionally masked a lot of that, because you're left really wondering what the details of the rift between him and the family were. You have some implications, and the one obvious kind of give to you with Monica, but there's definitely more there. And
yes.
I think they did a really good job of masking that and having that play into how his character came full circle.
My guess on that, or my speculation on that, is that he's the right age to have freaked his parent, or I guess at this point his mother had passed away, but really angered his father in joining the military. I'm sure he was a post 9/11 enlistment, and I can remember peers, going and committing themselves to military duty after 9/11, and then it's like, oh shoot, And I don't think the character of Casey would have had that oh shoot moment, but I'm sure that's a significant reason. I think even more so than his marriage to Monica was his enlistment into the military.
I could certainly see that. I think the biggest thing that I don't know, maybe not the biggest thing. There's so much left to interpretation with regard to what really instigated branding, as far as which people wore the brand and why. Um, Jimmy was extremely clear because they tell you the entire story, right? But the rest of them, you get a pretty solid feel for Rip because they give you a lot of that backstory.
Yes.
And they point to it being this is your choice moment kind of thing. But those were the only ones.
No, they. I think they gave a little bit of explanation. Well, there wasn't a lot of explanation for Teeter.
Well,
she got branded.
Yeah, so,
but she was like, if y'all are gonna, she's like, or she was basically, I don't have anything else going on, and this is now, you are my people, and I'm gonna commit.
That was also, what was his name? That the black guy that got trampled as well.
Colby.
Was that his name?
Is it Colby or Cody?
Might have been. I don't remember, unfortunately. But he got branded. It was the whole revenge thing, like that one. They told you pretty clearly that, look, you're asking for something that we're happy to give you, but we've got to know that you've got our best interest at it as well, kind of thing. Like that made sense. Kind of like, you're committing yourself to the ranch for life type thing.
Right. Yeah, there was like a person like Rip that was like a lot more.
It felt like it had a lot more weight to it.
I was gonna say it was more. It was sacred. Like his brand was sacred, whereas somebody like Colby was like, This is a significant commitment, and then somebody like Jimmy, he's like, yeah, I wanna. It's like I have you're the only ones that believe in me, and so he's gonna turn around and commit. You've shown a willingness to commit to me, and now I'm showing my willingness to commit back to you. And there was somebody else that I think that was branded that I wanted to. I'm trying to remember. He was a guitar player from Tennessee.
Yeah, I couldn't remember his name either, but his
didn't really
story,
have a choice.
Right, but his story was really convoluted because
Walker.
Yes.
And it is Colby. It is Colby.
Okay. But Walker, should have been dead. And so there was a string of time there where you can see that they're really trying to figure out how to make sure he is true to keeping his word, not just,
holding him accountable.
Yeah. And I did like the way they did his story and how he eventually did get his way out without it being problematic. So I do like his arc all across the board.
He found honor. His character found honor.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
He started out as relatively dishonorable, and then he changed.
I would challenge that a little bit because
too strong a word to say dishonorable.
Yeah, because he started out being just kind of in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like the backstory was what, a bar fight that went south kind of thing, or
I think so.
It was something along those lines where the other person died, and so he was charged with manslaughter and had jail time. Like that, regardless of what instigated it, you could make the case that it was still honorable from his perspective, but maybe it was overly forceful, or maybe it was just a fluke accident. Who knows? But point being that I don't know that I would classify him as dishonorable from that perspective.
I agree with you.
But he was definitely a criminal, right? Like they make it a point of letting you know that
he wasn't. He wasn't. He was no Boy Scout.
Yeah. But at the same time, he was adamant about not breaking the law for the family as well, at least at first. And then, of course, eventually it ended up happening anyway. But
his hand was forced.
I like that it was guided by principle for the most part.
Okay, so this is a little bit outside of the story, but I just didn't want to forget this. But the actor that portrayed Teeter is Michael Landon's daughter.
I think you mentioned in
I know I
a
mentioned, but I didn't say who it was. But that's who
yeah.
it was.
I didn't realize that. I never would have guessed.
No, I wouldn't have guessed either, and it makes it all the more interesting because like the accent that she uses, and the running joke in the show about how nobody understands her is makes it all the more funny to know that she's a kid that grew up in California. Whereas the actor that portrayed Walker, I think he is from the South. He is a country singer, correct?
I think so, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah. So I know that there's a it's in it's pre-production, but there is in the there's I don't know how committed, I don't know at what level of commitment there is, but there is um, information going around about there being a spin-off show with Rip and Beth, and I think that could be whatever, but I'm curious right now to see what kind of, I don't care for Beth. I find the character really interesting, but she's not a person that I like. She's not a character that I like. She's like you said. I think that's a really good put out genre light on her to be evil, and so I'm curious now that because her whole motivation was not just doing what her dad said. It wasn't that simple, but it was. She no longer has the same motivations anymore. The fate of the ranch has been fulfilled, and so it makes me want to see where they would take that character.
Yeah, I don't know. I could see it being interesting, and I could see it being
I could see it being like a flop.
yeah. I would still give it a chance, though, for sure.
Oh yeah, I would give it a chance as well. But I could totally see it being a flop. But I'm thinking and the best if they do it right, it would be interesting to see how her character develops. So.
I think they could do so they left it where you could absolutely do the same type of thing with Casey and Monica and Tate as well, because if you did one show about Beth and Rip and their ranch, and then do one with Casey and Monica and Tate as the maybe the primary family following. You know what I mean? Like it would be the natural evolution of the storytelling for Yellowstone. I'm sure you would brand it differently, but maybe whatever brand he decided to choose for himself be the continuation of the story. And then the Beth Rip, I guess Beth Rip Carter spinoff being a spinoff, so to speak. But both of them would really be equal weight from a storytelling perspective, and could be either interesting and have some fun possible interplay between the two, or could be complete failures because it's not what made Yellowstone Yellowstone.
Right. They no longer have the ranch as a motivation to do the thing.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. We'll see. Who knows if it will get past development. So I know that I think there's a 1943 in development.
I need to watch 1923 before I pass judgment on that kind of statement, but that seems excessive. I mean, maybe not. After I watched 1923, maybe I wouldn't feel the same way, but it's...
Well, like I said, 1923 was really tough to get through. And I will say it's, I think, when you I'm trying to remember exactly how you said it when you were finishing 1883, but this is depressing. I was like, 1923 is more of the same. But it's I think it's certainly worth it because almost half of the show has nothing to do with the Dutton Ranch at all. I know that I mentioned that they followed the mistreatment of the Crow teenage girl, and it's powerful. I think it's in the same way that there are certain things from. I'm pretty confident I've already compared it to Django Unchained, but there are certain things that you see in Django Unchained that just nobody ever prepared you for from school. They just, I even think there's the teachers are also in the same place as the students. They, were provided with the propaganda that we're provided with, and unless you have really gone deep into that subject matter, it doesn't occur to you how, we think about how inhuman owning another person is, but we don't take it to a reality that certain things that they show you in Django Unchained. It's like, I watch that and I'm like, I'm confident that is not made up. Like, I don't, you did not have to make, like, there's a whole bunch of stuff in that movie that is totally made up, and that is what makes you laugh. But there's the things in that movie that just make you wince are the things that are not made up. And 1923 had a lot of that.
Yeah, it's definitely one that I'll watch soon-ish. I think I'm gonna
give yourself a break.
Well, not so much that. So we started watching. I think I mentioned it already. Your Friends and Neighbors, the Apple TV one with John Hamm.
Yeah.
So we started watching it. We're still not even caught up to what's current there because of other things. Like I think we're gonna try to get it finished out, and Andor being the other one that we're still nowhere close to current on that one, and it's also I think they actually wrapped the second season already, but trying to get through both of those before jumping into something else. And I still need to watch the second season of The Last of Us, which will be my probably rowing go-to for a bit. Actually, I say that, but no, I started the Continental. So that'll be my rowing go-to for a little bit. That's the one that's in the John Wick universe. It's set before John Wick, younger Winston, based on the...
I haven't seen John Wick.
None of them?
None of them. I mean, they're at my fingertips, and they're on my list for sure, but I haven't seen any of them.
I didn't realize you hadn't watched any of them.
None of them.
Yeah, so I certainly highly recommend at least the first one. The others are more if you want just the continuation of the story, but the first one is well worth understanding what sets the entire series apart. It's probably a good way to put it.
If I watch the first one, I'm going to watch all of them. So,
well, I know.
I intend to watch all of them. So,
but the Continental, I think, was canceled pretty quickly. But it was also a Peacock original.
Yes, I do remember hearing about that. I just didn't realize it had anything to do with John Wick.
Yeah, same universe, just set beforehand. And I started it because I wanted just something faster paced to row to. Unfortunately, it has not been as fast paced as I wanted. So. I mean, it hadn't been bad, but it's not what I expected so far. And I'm not even through the first episode all the way, but I'll probably go ahead and finish that out first, and then go from there. So all that is just to say that I've probably got, a month before I start 1923.
Well, I was going to say I am about to start the John Hamm show. Is it Friends and Neighbors? Yes,
Friends and Neighbors. Your Friends and Neighbors.
Your friends. So I'm going to call it the John Hamm Show because I'm a fan of him as an actor.
Yeah, it's been good so far.
Yeah. It looks good. I mean, even he's an actor that I'll watch pretty much anything that he does because I think he's discerning. And so he was on SNL a few weeks ago in April. That episode is certainly worth watching. He's such a good comedic actor.
I haven't actually watched an episode of SNL in so long. Like I've watched snippets, of course, here and there, but
yeah. Well, I think that kind of makes it easier to not watch it. Because 20 years ago I watched it, and the reason that I watched all the 50th anniversary whatevers, and then I hadn't planned on watching any episodes until I don't know. I think I was like I don't want to, it's like I was staying up too late one night, and I was like I don't want to watch a show, and then So I went back and this was like, I don't know, this is maybe in March. I went back and I watched one from, I watched the one right before the election in November because I'm blanking on his name, the comedian who used to write for SNL, John
Mulaney?
Yes, thank you. I was blanking on his last name, but he hosted and I watched. I enjoyed it. And then I very recently watched the episode with Jack Black because folks were saying that it was like one of the best episodes ever. Like they were pointing out, I remember hearing someone point out that there's a skit that might dethrone Cowbell, the Cowbell sketch. And I watched it and I can't tell you what sketch that was. So the Cowbell sketch is not going to be dethroned.
Bruce, could you come in here for a second, please?
That was going to be a great track. Guys, what's the deal?
Are you sure that was sounding okay?
I'll be honest, fellas, it was sounding great, but I could have used a little more cowbell. So, let's take it again. And Gene,
Yeah,
really explore the studio space this time.
you got it, Bruce.
I mean, really,
Yeah.
explore the space.
Okay.
I like what I'm hearing. Roll it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
One of the
I think that
sketches
comes
ever.
down to the differences between generations. I think, not, and I don't mean that disparagingly. I just think that there's a certain humor that defines each generation in a way that does noticeably change over time.
Oh, you're not wrong.
Yeah, and so I think something
You're
that
definitely
gains like viral attention today just doesn't have the same class of humor.
There's just
And I don't.
Well, I think we're just inundated with so much more.
Yeah, that may be because I was real quick to kind of interrupt myself because I don't want to make that sound disparaging either. That's not how I mean it. It's more just because something hits a viral note or trend today doesn't put it in the same category as something that was like the Cowbell sketch for us, and it's there's not an easy way to compare that. I would say like the Mulaney's Horse in the Hospital skit, that section
Yeah,
would rival it better.
Yeah,
Like it's something that's going to catch you and it's going to be memorable and it's going to make you laugh every time.
well,
There's not as much of that, I don't know of a better way to describe it, but
I was going to say it's definitely different for sure. But that's because we live in a time where it's like there's so much vying for your attention. It's if anything, SNL is competing with so much more than it's ever had to compete with. And I think it's doing a good job. I'm sure viewership the numbers aren't the same, but let's be honest, nobody's numbers are the same.
yeah.
The numbers that you look at for like how popular, the popularity of a show, before streaming versus, now there's no way to compare those as far as just looking at numbers.
Well, and compound it a little bit before streaming to post multiple streaming services plus other online distribution mechanisms.
Mm-hmm.
It's so,
and the format has changed.
yeah.
It's like we don't have a 24 season. Like the idea of a 24 episode season is just daunting. It's like, and I think it's all been a good change because you end up with better storytelling, and that's the whole point. But I think that, of course I'm going to say this because it's me, and I think you're going to agree with me, but I think we sit in a time, like a really special time when we didn't, we were we're too young to have seen the beginning of Saturday Night Live to have appreciated it. That was for our parents, their generation. That's who that was directed to. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that happened in the 80s where they were just they I don't know how many times they nearly got canceled, but like they were struggling to find their voice. And in the late 1980s, you start getting some great comedians on the show. And by the 90s, I mean, you have like, people that we grew up, like, again, just not too young to appreciate it, but too young, for my parents to be okay with me watching it. I had to sneak it. I had to be creative, and I certainly wasn't, I wasn't staying up, when I was 10 years old, and Mike Myers and Dana Carvey and Daryl Hammond and Chris Farley and Adam Sandler were on there. It's like I had to be creative with where I got to see that show. Sometimes it was, a little bit later as a teenager when I'd be able to go back and see them on reruns on E. Can you believe that E was the channel that showed the reruns of SNL? I was like, that didn't make sense. And eventually, I don't know if E and Comedy Central have the same parent company, but eventually the reruns were on SNL reruns were on Comedy Central, and that made a hell of a lot more sense. But by the time I was in college, late 90s, early 2000s, it's like, it was hitting its stride. Like it was hitting its stride again. I think in the early 90s, it was really great stuff coming out. Early 2000s, really great stuff coming out. And then I had children, and so I didn't have the time. That's not where I spent my time watching television because, I chose other things over SNL. And having gone back and watched 3 episodes from this season and all the 50th anniversary celebration shows, I was like, it's really good. Like, it's really good quality sketches. Even to the point where it's like they sort of end abruptly because they're like, oh, we told all the jokes that are worth telling in this sketch, and then they just end the sketch abruptly because they need to go to the next sketch so as not to lose viewers' interest. And I found it really, not in a bad way, but it was just like really noticeable how quickly they would end a sketch. And like, the way it was written, it was like, oh, they don't have the luxury of extending this and seeing how far they can go with that. And I found that interesting.
A byproduct of the commercial era, they don't have to write it for a specific timestamp.
No, it's interesting. So, but yeah, there's some good stuff that came out. It was a great. So first of all, you still have older millennials and younger Gen X on the show contributing to the show. But you have younger millennials. I'm not sure that there are many Gen Z kids yet, but they're coming up. But it was a really good mix of like silly, funny pop culture references that a broad audience would get. So like they did a whole, also the political satire. No, I'm sure they are barring some holds, but it's not a lot. It's whatever. It's more having to do with censorship than anything else. They don't seem to be afraid whatsoever to slam dunk on the current administration. And it's not like they were ever afraid to do that with any of the administrations. They make fun of Biden as much. They would make fun of Biden as appropriately as much as they do Trump. It's just that there's so much more stuff to make fun of regarding Trump. So it's worth watching one episode just to see like the general format and kind of some of the changes that have happened that they've had to make to maintain relevance. We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work or are interested in listening to our new after show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap. It's something I would still love to see live.
Oh, me too. Me too. I always, when I lived in New York, I always wanted to be like, oh, it would be so nice to see a live show. Or see it. Yeah.
I need to look and see. Maybe not. Maybe that's too much to try to pack in. I need to look and see while I'm there if I can potentially sneak into one of the shows. I say sneak like I would sneak, but I mean legitimately grab tickets because they're free.
Yeah. That would be awesome.
I need to look. I doubt I will because I already have 2 really full days. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you don't make it this time, then you and Emily need to go together.
Well, see, that's the whole point is I need to do it so that I have something to hang over.
Yeah.
I got to go do this, you know?
Yeah. I did mean to ask you one more question about Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Did you like the Elsa's voiceover at the end? Or towards the end?
I thought it was unnecessary.
Really?
I didn't mind it. Like I felt like it didn't. I knew what they were going for from a standpoint of really trying to bring it full circle, but I didn't feel like it needed to be done.
Oh, see, I was going to be totally disappointed had they not done that. I would have thought, big opportunity missed.
I think it's just a difference in I don't really like voiceovers for telling the story. I never have. It's not that I despise them or anything. It's just I don't like using them that much. And so if it doesn't sell me on really being a necessary part of the story, I just feel like it's maybe...
I think that...
What's another way I would put it? Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that any viewers who had not watched 1883 would have been like, what the hell is this? Like if I had not watched 1883, I'd be like, who the hell is this, and why the hell do we all of a sudden have a voiceover? Because it'd be, you'd have almost 5 complete seasons of no voiceover, and all of a sudden some young Southern woman is talking about something, and I'm like, but because it was prominent in 1883. 1883 started with the voiceover.
And funnily enough, I think it works well with 1883. Like I didn't have the same feeling there that I did at the end. And I think that may be why. I didn't think about the discrepancy between everything with Yellowstone up to that point hadn't had a voiceover. And so all it is a callback and tie into 1883 from that regard.
Right.
And so it's more of an Easter egg kind of thing than it is a necessary component.
Yes.
And I think that's why, I didn't dislike it at all. I don't want to give the wrong impression, but it didn't have that, I felt it necessary feeling either.
I would, like I said, I would have been disappointed, but I would say it's not necessary, but I would have been disappointed because they took the time to make an entire story about how they got out there, and the whole reason that they ended up at that specific piece of land was Elsa dying, and he was like, James was rushing to get her to, a place where the whole family could stay. So, I think that was.
And in fairness, they did make it a point that it was going to be a temporary thing. And so the callback to that and the whole 7 generations piece, it did help bring a lot of clarity to someone who maybe didn't watch 1883. And I can appreciate that. But if you didn't watch 1883, you don't get it all anyway.
Yeah, that's true. I love how Mo Brings Plenty was telling them no, that they would honor the bodies that were buried there of the white people.
Yeah,
I thought that was I thought that was a great symbol of unity.
I really wish I had a good snarky comment for that, paralleling what we needed today. I was racking my brain about how could I turn that around into, if only we had something similar today, but it kept falling flat in my mind.